And welcome back, Beast Warriors. This is Beast Mojo. Back up in your ass with the resurrection.
Back up in your ass with the resurrection.
It's been a hot minute since I checked in. So I thought the easiest way for me to get re-engaged with this content creation thing is to just deep dive into the very reason that I've got this channel set up in the first place. And that's to go through a 3-season rewatch and review of the entirety of Beast Wars. And as I much opined in the earlier videos, I'll probably will have to follow that up with a rewatch of the 2 seasons of Beast Machines as well, just so we can thoroughly dissect the good and the bad and the ugly. In this case, the bad and the ugly would just sort of fit into the Beast Machine side of things, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I guess not really structuring this in any specific way. I'll probably just give you a little intro here and then just jump straight into Beast Wars Part 1 and Part 2. I'm going to just live react and record that. Maybe at some point I'll include my not so beautiful face in these reaction videos. So it'll kind of be like a live review, and then I'll do like a post episode review and then just hit you with some random trivia that I've sort of gotten from around the interwebs, mostly from IMDb. So, you know, this isn't like anything special that I've dug up myself. It's just everything's Googleable. And just, I guess from a couple of Beast Wars websites, there's some bits and pieces of trivia per episode. And I guess peppered with, you know, my regular old nostalgic self, giving you as much information as I can from the experience as I lived it back in the 90s. But here we go. Beast Wars, Episode 1, Part 1 of two-parter, just called Beast Wars Part 1, Beast Wars Part 2. They waste no time in getting us right into the thick of things and getting us up to speed on, you know, how certain things work, who people are. The main thing I guess I want to highlight and people to remember as we go through this is it's really the expert writing and the character arcs and the plotting of the characters and the story itself that sets this apart from a lot of other experiences that would have been aimed at the same demographics. So, you know, a lot of younger audiences growing up with this stuff, we loved it for specific reasons, but there was so much more to appreciate about it. And if you just kept rewatching over the course of your life, as I did, you know, from 96 when I was only 12 years old up till now, which, you know, I am 40 and in between, you know, doing rewatches in between every now and then. It's like the best kind of art, it tends to grow with you and reveal more of its mature side that was very much ingrained from the beginning. But even as a kid, even at that young age, you could tell, or I could tell, if I could just speak from my personal perspective, I could tell that there was something more mature and a bit more next level happening here. And it really was typified by the creative staff, all of whom I have gone through and given their specific flowers in my upcoming Sanctuary podcast episode 2. That one goes for like an hour and a half. It was recorded like 2 years ago, but you know, nothing's really changed since then in terms of what I was feeling. But really, as we go through this ride and relive this for some of y'all who are my age, I think you're going to be even more captured by the fact that this was really just well-written stuff. Well written, well acted, well plotted, and at the end of the day, man, did we get cheated out of, you know, a season 4, potentially a season 5. Yeah. That is going to be the ultimate kick in the nuts moment when I get to that at some point. I'm going to have to really reflect on how close we got to Beast Wars Season 4, which I guess at that point would have made, you know, a lot of sense. It was still a very popular show. But anyway, tangent approaching. Let's get right into it, peeps. This is Season 1, Episode 1. Let's go. Now, the one thing you'd be immediately struck by in Beast Wars is the epic introduction and intro theme, which is just this balls to the wall rock tune with an insane shred solo in the second half. And it's got these tribal drums, really leaning into the Beast side of things. And that came to really typify the sound aesthetic of the entire show. But here we go, part 1 of The Beast Wars, written by Bob Forward. Yeah, I always loved the designs of the ships, the Axelon and the quote-unquote dark side.
Man, this is ridiculous! We're an exploration ship, not a battle cruiser!
Yeah. Important point.
Our ship was the only one that could lock onto Megatron's warp signature.
No. So this was Megatron's hubris and is the whole reason they crash land in the first place.
We're going.
So a lot of shadowed characters.
All pods, get them into safe orbit.
We'll get to that in a sec. But yep, it's pooping out the stasis pods as an emergency maneuver to save them. But obviously this was also to help have a really handy mechanic to introduce new characters. Here's the large ditch shot. Blammo, governor. Yeah, the designs of these ships as well. So obviously the Predacon ship already looks like a pterodactyl. Kind of looks like a reptilian kind of design. And the Axelon always reminded me of like a, I don't know, it's like a ship, but it's got like this giant mustache that goes around it. Or almost like one of those like ground crawling insects, slugs that have like suction cup skirting around their entire body. I'm hoping some of that made sense. We might just see it visually now and actually verify if I'm like completely nuts.
Damage report.
Believe me, you don't want to know.
That's what I thought.
Well, why did I ask if that's what you're going to tell me, Cheetor? Annoying little shit. At least he is in the beginning. Yeah, it looks fleshy as well. This looks like a fleshy ship.
Unknown. Core settings were accurate, but readings are inconsistent with those expected for intended destination. Field readings are off the scale. Continued exposure to robotic forms will result in permanent damage.
Then we will create alternate forms based on the most powerful local creatures.
Perhaps will be more than meets the eye, even. So it's really the only full body shot we get of one of the Transformers, any of them really, pre-animal beast mode. Because they're meant to just look like generic robots. They're not supposed to have an alt mode. Although Tarantulas looks like he already has it. Rhinox kind of looked like he already had it in his close-up. The only one that you could probably properly see was Megatron, but I think budgetary-wise, they could only have... They couldn't sort of build even more models that were only going to be used in that opening scene, so they kind of just gave you a hint with how it was supposed to look with Megatron. And you could assume that the rest of them were kind of bare bones, robot-y looking.
Replication of local life forms complete. You may emerge.
Ooh, emerge.
Hey, look at me! I'm a cheetah! No. I'm Cheetor!
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting? Optimus, the word is spot on smooth.
Yeah, why is Cheetah so obsessed with the way he looks?
Crime.
Now this is what class is all about. Call me Rat Trap.
Oh yeah? How's about I cut Mises to pieces?
Ease back, Cheetor. Living large is for forms like...
One of my favorite characters. Rhinox.
Yeah, and just consider yourself lucky I didn't get rough on yous.
Freaking Cheetor though, immediately antagonizing Rat Trap.
Beast forms are to protect us from the long-term effects of the energon fields out there.
Introducing the
Robot forms will start to short out
episodic conceits.
exposure. This is one unusual planet.
Gives them an excuse to keep them in robot mode.
We could be any place, anytime.
Yes, and our crew is orbiting the planet in those stasis pods we lost in battle. They're protected from the energon fields, but it means Megatron has us outnumbered.
Okay, we're going to pause there for a sec. So, yeah, a lot of concepts being introduced pretty early on. It's doing a hell of a lot of world building in a short amount of time. We're only like 6 minutes and 41 seconds into it, and the level of just lore being dropped without having specifically mentioned anything to do with G1 and that connectivity, which is still to come. This is just catching up on the here and now for their world and their reality. So as far as we can piece together up to this point, the good guys have been chasing the bad guys. I don't think they've actually name-checked themselves as Maximals and Predacons just yet. But you know that one's a good faction, one's a bad faction. They're after Energon, which is clearly an energy source. And I guess that might be the first sort of Easter eggy reference, is the fact that they use the term Energon, which is very specifically from the Transformers lore. But even just from the name, if you had no idea about Transformers history, you would understand that to be some form of an energy source. We come to understand very quickly that Megatron has been seeking this Energon, and hopefully he sought out the correct planet with the coordinates that he had. And that sets up the rest of the, I guess, series. So a lot of that was done, well, you know, it's got a lot of creative merit, but it also served, because working, I guess, for Hasbro, you got to serve multiple different goals. As a story editor, writer, you got to be the creative juice, and you got to make sure that that's all up to snuff. But then you got to balance that with budgetary restraints as well. You know, you got to try and save money on production. And I think keeping the Transformers in beast mode did that. So they came up with a conceit to do that by, say, having the planet be overloaded with Energon, and coming up with the notion that if there's too much raw Energon, then that's going to overload your system. And staying in beast mode is what sort of keeps you from going into what they term as stasis lock. So it ends up being just one of many of these sort of instances where you're kind of at the mercy of the needs of the external parties who actually help, you know, fund and own the IP, and give you your budget, which I believe Beast Wars, at least the first season, had like a hefty fucking budget. Like I think it was somewhere north of like $20 million. I guess for its time and for the technology it was using, like it was groundbreaking. All right, I'm probably gonna repeat that a lot throughout the rewatch, because I still think that this is just some gorgeous looking stuff. It's just gorgeous textures, reflections, movements, even the mouth movements when they talk, robot mode and beast mode, very convincing. Yeah, I won't get too far flung into that just yet, but I guess, yeah, what I was talking about was being able to take the constraints that you have and then working that into the show, and then making that part of the show. But the expertise comes into play when you can do that. Fine, anyone can just do that part, but then it's being able to weave that into the show and into the narrative so expertly that you are mistaken for thinking that this was planned from the get-go. And from all the interviews I've read over the years and seen with Bob and Larry, that was never the case. It wasn't absolutely methodically pre-planned to that extent, although I do believe Larry did quite a bit of prep work before starting that process, because I think him and Bob worked slightly differently to each other, in the sense that Larry he'd be a bit more of a Batman and he'd put in a lot more prep time, and Bob would kind of prefer to wing it, as he's said many times over the years. But somewhere in between, those two minds met in the middle, and they got shit done, and they got shit done at a high level. So again, we're only 6 minutes and 41 seconds in. I've got a whole lot to say already, it appears. But at this point, where as it stands, it's only taken that long to establish factions. Haven't been named yet, but they will be. You can already tell one of them has a leader. It's the purple guy. I don't think he's been named yet either. I always thought it was interesting the locations that they landed in as well. Obviously, it was meant to evoke their, allegiances. So the Predacons land in basically what looks like an active volcano. A whole lot of lava shifting underneath them. I'm not sure how that works in terms of the amount of immense heat that would be radiating through the rocks as well. It looks cool. Not very practical. Then again, the Maximals landed on the edge of a fucking cliff, which is not safe and sturdy. Like that whole landscape changes a few times over the course of the series. So yeah, they're both in kind of precarious, odd placements. And when you first see them actually crash landing in just like a minute before this, it didn't look like they were very far away from each other, distance-wise. And I think that makes sense, because most of the time when they go from one to the other, when it's like, let's attack the Maximal base or let's attack the Predacon base, it doesn't take them a hell of a lot of time to get there. So yeah, that makes sense spatially. So these are the things I love about my favorite TV shows. This one's got some respect for its own spatial awareness, how long it takes to get to certain places, establishing where places are, so then you can have distances involved, and then when you have the distances involved, you know how much time it's going to take them, and then you know what they can be doing in between during that time. If you have time to kill, then they got to be doing something. Everything matters. So when you're building a TV show or a continuity or a universe, this is the writer in me coming out. It's gonna be coming out quite a bit. You need to overthink everything. All right, a universe is what it implies. It is the entirety of existence. Say you're an architect that exists beyond the boundaries of space and time. You're a highly evolved being, and you have the ability to create from scratch. You can create sentient beings, either flesh and blood organics or robotics, whatever it may be. You can have the ability to create the rocks and the terrain, the sky, the elements, the stellosphere, like everything. Everything's up for grabs. But you have a responsibility as the creator to have it make some kind of sense and to have it work in a discernible way. So not everything's a mystery, right? There, of course, are a lot of mysterious things in the world that we live in, as there will be in fictional settings, because you don't want to just spill the beans all at once. Want to retain some mystery, so we can actually unravel some information as we go. But ultimately, you want to really overthink, right? It's probably one of the best opportunities you would have to overthink is to deep dive into your own fictional setting. I guarantee it is an intense experience, because you start to live the experience, and that is something that was echoed by both Bob and Larry years ago. I remember an interview with them years ago stating that after a while you're just dreaming about robots. You're dreaming about the characters. You're seeing them interacting of their own free will. It's happening in your mind, in your unconscious mind as you sleep, but they are now real entities. They exist in their own right. They have their own identities, very strong personalities that you set up from the beginning, and then that you get to mold and work with in a very humanistic way. Every element of this show, ladies and gentlemen, has gone that length, gone to the trouble, and we reap the benefits. So any creatives out there wanting to put something out there into the ether, really do yourself a service, and then do your potential fans a service. Really overthink things, and really make sure you know what it is that you have before you start to, spread it out into the world. Or even just, have the ability to roll with the punches and improvise, because that is a very, very useful thing to have as a creative, like a general all-round creative. I mean, I could speak specifically just from the musician standpoint. Improv has been like central. It's at the very heart of what I've done musically with other musicians for a good 20 years now. But it wasn't until I realized that I was actually doing that in most of my creative outlets that I realized the immense utility of it, that I had nothing but improv and freestyled ideas that seemingly come out fully formed sometimes. So when you have that, then, you know, which is like the Bob Forward mindset, then you can roll with the punches to the degree that you can then take those things and make them central plot devices and plot narratives to your entire story, and have them, you know, have immense meaning at the end of the day. It's not necessarily taking lemons and making lemonade, because these aren't lemons, they're just, you know, presets. I guess you can call them presets. It's like going into, you know, FL Studio, or what I used to refer to as Fruity Loops, because that's what it was called when it first came out, when I was using it. You got the presets, but then you can fuck with the presets, and then you can tweak the presets, and you can turn them into something else. So, you know, a TV show that's owned by a conglomerate and a company and is a very notable IP in their catalog, they've thrown a lot of money at it. They've always not been shy about throwing money at these things, but they also come with a hell of a lot of caveats. You know, we want these characters. These ones have to be killed off in the second season because we're introducing upgraded versions of their bodies, and then, you know, the trans metals. And then you've got to come up with reasons for why these bodies have been upgraded. So everything has to connect and interconnect. And really, you know you're dealing with an expert when they can do that and you don't even notice. All you really notice at the end of the day is the immensely awesome product. How entertaining and well told everything is. Let us continue. This is still part 1, by the way. I don't know how long these fucking things are going to go for. I am a wordy motherfucker, after all. So let's say about an hour for all these. Let's go.
No! It's all wrong. This cannot be Earth. Megatron, you fail.
The insane voice of Dinobot.
We stole the golden disc for nothing, you idiot!
I beg your pardon? What did you call me?
I am taking over. Dinobot, terrorize!
Yeah, this is before terrorize wasn't such a loaded word.
Battle Megatron. The winner shall lead the Predacons, and the loser shall be destroyed. Do you accept my challenge?
There's more to being a leader than simple courage. Well, there's cleverness and cunning as well. Isn't that right? Scope knock.
Boom. Double missile to the chest.
Loser. What does it matter?
Loser.
On. We came looking for Energon, and this planet is...
Gosh, I love Megatron.
Enough Energon to power the Predacons' entire galactic conquest. Find them. And if you find them...
Destroy them.
Destroy them.
Get a good glimpse of all the Predacons. Now we get a glimpse of the good guys.
Man, all this for a golden disc.
It was Cybertron's most carefully guarded relic, Rat Trap. It gave the location of a major energon source.
We were supposed to be doing deep space exploration. Playing Galactic Patrol wasn't nowhere in my job description, you know what I'm saying? You sure you cut out for this commander gig?
Remember the Great War, Rat Trap. If the Predacons get enough energon, they'll start it again. We can't let that happen. Besides, you wanted exploration, and here we are on an unknown planet. What more do you want?
Well, call me picky, but a working spacecraft might be nice.
Just no pleasing some people.
I really dig the yeah, we get a little back and forth just to set up the dynamics between the Maximals and the Predacons. So we've established that Dinobot, who's not in command, but obviously wishes he was, challenges Megatron for the leadership of the Predacons because he feels like he's misled them to the wrong planet, and then gets unceremoniously missiled in the chest and exiled from the group. with David Kay's amazing performance. Loser. Like for all the villains that are villained, I think David Kay's Megatron is just like, I find it hard to really hate the guy. I really do. I think that's why in my fanfiction work, the one that I pitched on this channel a couple of years ago, that I'm still actually scripting out. It's going to be a real thing eventually. I could see him becoming a bit of a sympathetic character. That's what he's going to be in my story eventually. It's like taking a character like that and opting for the redemption path to see, first of all, if that's going to, you know, if he has any, if there's any recourse for it, if there's any notion that someone like that could be redeemed. But I never out and out hated him. I just thought he was very singular in his mission. He stole a lot of Transformers lore being dropped here, or at least name checked. So they're saying the golden disc was Cybertron's most carefully guarded relic because it gave the location of a major energon source, which is this planet. And that's why Megatron stole it, because he who hath an abundance of energon can power an army, I guess, if they wish, for galactic conquest. That's been, I guess, the main thrust of the original cartoons too, right? G1. A lot of conflict was around the energy source. The reason why Cybertron was dying, and the reason that I guess they were ultimately fighting. So it's already established pretty good connections with G1. Although I think in the beginning they were leaning more towards G2, or like more comic lore, which was incorporated too. So it's actually a bit of a mix from what I remember. But very cool little bits of dialogue. So Megatron establishing some... He had some bars there when he was retorting to Dinobot's taunt. Try saying retorting and taunt 10 times together. Yeah, he drops some knowledge. He's like, yeah, there's more to being a leader than just, you know, mere courage. It's like, courage is great. Courage can be very noble, and it can get you written in the annals of history as a courageous leader who was super brave. But you don't want to be that person who ends up being a footnote in history because they were super brave, but then just ended up just dying because they're also very super stupid. So he's basically saying there are layers to this leadership thing. Dino Boob, which he's a bit impetuous, you know, to make that challenge. They haven't really established where they are yet. You know, if you actually think about it, if you just stopped for like 5 minutes and been like, let's actually get a sense of where we are and figure out what this place is and if we are in the right place. And then he could have probably methodically tried to take over the Predacon leadership from within. That could have been a story arc too. He could have been slowly turning towards the Maximals, but in the very beginning, because Maximals mentioned that they're outnumbered with all their stasis pods in orbit, they're technically outnumbered. So Dinobot shifting alliances was, you know, a story thing again. So many decisions in this show, I think, serve multiple different things. So story-wise, to, you know, engender some conflict there. And then to also introduce the antimatter to the matter of Maximals. So you're having a Predacon in the midst who's completely different, brings a different vibe. But it's also just to balance the scales. So now you have even amounts of people on each side. Because being outnumbered, it's mentioned a bunch of times in this series. And it's always mentioned as a big deal. Even if you're outnumbered by 1, you're still outnumbered and outgunned. So there's always the threat or the fear that slight tip in the balance of, you know, if it's 5 on 5 or 6 on 6, now suddenly it's 5 on 6. Or 7 on 5, or whatever the case may be. There's always the implication that that's going to tip the scales tremendously, even if it's just one person that's making the difference. So it's always mentioned. That's what I've noticed as well. And then we've got the small interaction between Rat Trap and Optimus. Very lighthearted, very humorous, very naturalistic. Love the banter being established straight away. I love Rat Trap's personality being established straight away. You're going to see a lot of him just questioning Primal's leadership, because Primal's not a military commander. He's leading an exploration vessel, as they have pointed out already. And they were the ones closest to Megatron and his ship to intercept and follow. And also establishing, Optimus's very different leadership style to, obviously, the Predacons, but even other Maximals, I would wager, will look at his leadership style and be like, yeah, you're not enough of a hard motherfucker. Yeah, you're a little too loving and peaceful. As much as you can be. And with that comes a healthy sense of humor. So, he had no problem rebutting Rat Trap's little quip and saying, there's just no pleasing some people. And now we're going back to it at 9:51.
Hey, check it!
Cheetor being annoying.
All right. You chose a good form.
Hey, you think that speed? You ain't seen the golden rocket. Check this.
No, Cheetor. That was not a sign for you to do something stupid. It's like you say one thing to him and he's like, yeah? Well, how's about I go jump off a mountain and use my tail as a helicopter and land?
No good. The Energon.
Little shit doesn't even reply back to his comms before it cuts out.
They ain't worth scrap.
Well, that's just prime.
So, this is your first day on the job or what?
Shut up, Rat Trap.
Oh, yes. I feel just heaps better knowing that our lives are in your capable hands. We're all gonna die.
Oh, wow. I gotta pause it again at 10:54. So we got hit with some of the ongoing classic lines in this series. We got the first utterance of, well, that's just prime, by Optimus Primal. Says that quite a bit. Whereas more like, well, that's just kind of fucked, isn't it? That's kind of what he's saying as well. That's great. Like a sarcastic, yeah, that's great. Good stuff. And immediately with Rat Trap not wasting the opportunity to just be like, hey, this your first day on the job or what? It's like, what? You little shit? What did you say to me? And then the first utterance of the immortal, shut up, Rat Trap. But it doesn't end there. He, again, counters back. He's like, oh, yes, sir. I feel so fucking comfortable knowing we're in your capable hands. And then the absolute classic of classic Beast Wars lines is Rat Trap's, we're all gonna die. Like, man, we really got spoiled in this first episode. We got every little bit that we need. Pay attention, fellow writers. This is the way you set up an entire series arc. This is how you set up characters, man. And let's go back to annoying ass Cheetor. I know I'm ragging on Cheetor a little bit. He's not I don't hate him, but these early episodes, and they're a bit Cheetor heavy. But he was just way too okay, they're playing up, the preteen angle quite a bit. It's like, man, I wasn't like this when I was an adolescent or preteen. I didn't act this way. Oh, yeah. It's like, he's just too competitive. Maybe it's just the beginnings of the testosterone starting to course through his body. And one assumes he was like this already, pre-becoming Cheetor, but maybe them taking on, their animal traits, which is something, I guess they technically do take on, maybe even without them consciously doing it. It's just sort of boosted that preteen energy that he's got, to max levels. So it's no matter what you fucking ask the kid, be like, hey Cheetor, can you hand me that wrench? Yeah? You want me to hand you that wrench? Yeah? You ain't seen nothing yet. If you think that's the best wrench you've seen, you ain't seen nothing yet. Rawr! And then he runs off. It's almost like an awkward Morty. like Rick and Morty. And be like, oh yeah. And then he just runs off. That's like literally like every fucking scene for Cheetor in the first few, at least the first 3 or 4 eps. Or what I imagine is happening off screen when people are just trying to talk to the guy. Like, just calm the fuck down, first of all, Cheetor. Cool your gears. Spots. We need to go clean the latrine. Can you handle cleaning the latrine? Oh yeah! I can clean the latrine. I can clean the latrine like you've never seen. And then runs off. Like, fucking hell, man. Cheetor. Stop running away, mate. You need to growl and run every time like someone's asked you some basic shit. You got some issues, my friend. Issues. And now he's trying to like run with these 2 other cheaters who are actual cheaters, and he's trying to talk to them in his language, which we're hearing is English, but obviously they're speaking, probably Cybertronian to each other. Why? These animals don't speak. I guess, are they not aware of certain life forms? They must not be. They must not be familiar with these life forms. They know about Earth, but they must not know about like prehistorical Earth or just the animal species in general. Must not be a thing. Maybe it's not an elective in like Cybertronian University, like University of Iacon or some shit. They don't teach that. I think they should, because Earth seems to play a pretty pivotal role in like the entire Transformers existence up to this point. It's very much hinged around Earth. I'm not really chalking that up to writers or bad writing, just Cheetor being a dick. Alright, we're going back at 10:54.
The name's Cheater. What's shaking, cats? What? Is it my breath?
No, it's not your breath. It's just you, bro. Chill out.
It's just a big bug. The way those 2 reacted, that's no natural life form. And if we're talking unnatural life forms, then we gotta be talking about just one thing. Robots in disguise!
You just said that all out loud, though. He heard you.
All right, everybody, freeze!
Damn, I was talking out loud again.
Okay, at least his robot mode looks pretty badass. Always did. But time for this cat to pounce?
Was we need to terrorize!
Hello, fan favorite Waspinator. Yeah.
Hey, heads up! Roadblock!
Veer left. There's a clearing about 100 meters.
Maybe not.
Ah, yes. Silly me.
Again, sarcastic whip. Love it. Waspinator not nearly using that eye laser enough in the rest of the series, to be honest.
Jam!
Cheater! Get to cover! For I believe that you are soon to have, how shall I put it, difficulties of your own.
Yes.
We don't have to do this, Megatron. There has been peace between the Maximals and Predacons for centuries. Why start this up again?
Peace, perhaps on your side, Maximal scum. Yes, but not on ours.
Cheater!
Ah, a treacherous, underhanded sneak attack. Oh, I like you, pussycat. Yes. Predacons, terrorize!
Do it! Maximize!
Tarantulas, terrorize!
Rhinox, maximize!
Rhinox.
Terrorize! Red Trap, maximize! Parasaur, terrorize!
Megatron, terrorize!
Rawr. Meanwhile, in the time it took them to transform, the war's over.
I'm stuck!
Rat Trap, help Cheetor! We'll cover you!
Yeah, right!
Rat Trap.
Yeah, and you can just kiss my skid plate, fearless leader, cause I ain't going out there and getting my pelt punctured.
Optimus!
See? Told ya! Hey! Let me down, you big bulldozer!
Cover fire. They need it, we give it. Now! Energon! Field builder! Convert back to beast mode!
Let's get one thing straight, Rat Trap. I am commander of this group, and when I give an order, I expect it to be obeyed.
Oh, yeah? So I get vaped because you're too chicken to go yourself.
I will not give an order I would not be willing to do myself.
Come on, what are you shorting about? We got out of there alive, didn't we?
But injured. It'll take time for our beast forms to effect internal repairs.
Yeah, well, better you than me.
Great interaction.
Leading the fade, Optimus.
Attention, Maximals. My name is Dinobot. I have left the Predacons to join your group as leader.
What? Did I hear the word leader?
This guy's got bearings of chrome steel.
I hereby challenge you, Optimus Primal, to a one-on-one battle. The winner shall lead the Maximals, and the loser shall be destroyed.
Yeah, so lots to unpack there. In the last sort of 5 minutes worth, Cheetor is rescued from doing Cheetor things, which will be kind of a recurring motif across the initial first handful of episodes. We get first glimpses again of the butting of heads of Optimus as now reluctant leader, military leader, essentially, and Rat Trap not really buying that he's capable and really not endorsing him at all. So Optimus is demanding that Rat Trap go help Cheetor and he'll provide the cover fire, and Rat Trap just flat out says, nope. Not doing that. So he just goes and does it himself. And then they have that conversation as they're returning back to base. It's an, I'm the leader, I expect you to follow my orders. And, it's like, and Rat Trap quite rightly says, why? So I can go out there and get my ass shot off? I don't think so, buddy. So, and Optimus counters by saying, you know, I wouldn't give you an order that I wouldn't be willing to follow myself, but we need to see that in action first. That's why we saw that happen. We need to see that Optimus is willing to do those things. It's not just him passing the buck. So really setting the tone for his personality as well, where, yeah, he might be a reluctant leader, but he's embracing whatever's coming at him as best as he can. He's not rolling over and giving up at all. That's the hallmark of any Optimus named Transformer is, to persevere and never give up. So we'll see that progress over the course of the series, and well, at least we're sticking to the first season. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Optimus develop the leadership skills that to be the leader that he wants to be. But he'll learn some hard lessons along the way, and none harder than having to deal with his own team and his own group, specifically Rat Trap, who will call you out if you're not up to par. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, or if he just doesn't really actively believe in you. We got the first sort of battle scene between the two groups as they meet post-crash, and they have a little bit of a conversation there, basically just getting into the backstory of the Great War's been over for a while. There's been peace between our two factions for centuries, which I think, if I remember the lore, is about maybe a few hundred years. I think they do mention a time frame at some point in the series. We'll get to that, but yeah, at least a few centuries since the Autobots and Decepticons and the Great War. But according to Megatron, their faction is just, playing peaceful, but they're really just secretly in the background working to restart the war and retake what they believe is theirs, which is, galactic dominance. And I think it does come across as a bit more of a nuanced thing. I don't really buy that every single Predacon would be on board with what Megatron did, right? I don't think that entities like the Tripredacus Council would have a lot more political shenanigans happening, more so than just, straight up stealing some shit, going on the run, and then potentially triggering another war. So there'd be factions in the Predacons who maybe feel the same way, but are like, you know what, it's not worth doing this. We lost so much on both sides. And you could potentially lost the planet, Cybertron, in the process, So it's in no one's best interest to restart another war like that, unless there's people profiting from it somehow, like in the real world. So, yeah, lots of interesting little bits of setup being set up, and we get the premise for the battles to come. All right, Megatron's here for the Energon. The Maximals now are going to be tasked with stopping him from collecting all that Energon. Luckily, both of their ships are inoperable in so much as they can't fly, but they can do pretty much everything else. And we've set up, a good chunk of story and personalities. We didn't really get too much of the Predacons because we don't really need to. We just got a bit of the muhaha sort of mustache twirling style of villainy from Tarantulas, Pterosaur, and then Waspinator is obviously a one of one with that crazy voice. Yeah, so we do get to dig deeper into all these characters though. That's the beauty of having a 26 episode first season, is that we had extended time to actually meander through episodes and actually see growth happening at a sort of normal pace. It's one of the benefits of the show, I think. It's one of the strengths. And then we end with, coming home from the battle a little bruised and a little hurt, but at least they, as Rat Trap said, look, at least we got out of there alive. But there was one Predacon missing, which was the exiled Dinobot, who now shows up on the bridge, challenging the Maximal leadership, as he will do at least another few times throughout the season. And almost in season 2 as well. So that thought is never far from his mind, regardless of whether or not he's just, part of the group, as he will be after, episode 2. The notion that he should be leader is just always there. You can't sort of rip that away from him. It's part of his machismo and his ego. Lots of cool things to come. So I'd say the trivia section is probably what will be next. Let's see exactly what the trivia portion has to say about Beast Wars Part 1. So this was, it's a lot more obvious on the rewatch. So Part 1 is notable for featuring Waspinator as a real threat to the Maximals. Only in later episodes would he become the much abused comic relief. Much abused comic relief. Love that. Makes sense though, that's kind of what he is. But yeah, he actually was, his voice was actually voiced a lot more aggressive in the battle he had with Cheetor, and he was a bit more formidable. Even though his voice was still very, ridiculous, it was a bit more unsettling to actually go up against a actual proper angry Waspinator. Speaking of the voices too, this is pretty much set as the voice cast, but the only thing that changed was that I think in episode 1 and 2, Scorponok was voiced by a different person. I feel like that is the case. I really should have looked that up prior to this, but I always assume so, because in episode 1 and 2, it almost sounded like way feminine. His voice was way more high pitched. So I'm not sure if the voice actor changed from Ep 1 and 2, and then going off into the rest of the series. I think from episode 3, it's a lot different. So pretty sure Scorponok was voiced by, was it Don Brown? I believe. Yes, Don Brown. So, I am mistaken. That was actually still Don Brown. No fucking way. Oh, maybe it was. Yeah. Okay. I guess he was still trying to figure out the voice, maybe. That's why. But it was like, Scorponok, and then in episode 3, it's come down a bit, and it's like, Scorponok, terrorize, so I think he probably made some adjustments from Ep 1 and 2 all the way up to Ep 3, and I'm thankful for that. And I guess just to introduce the rest of the cast, you've got Gary Chalk as Optimus Primal, Ian James Corlett as Cheetor, David Kay as Megatron, Scott McNeil as Rat Trap and Dinobot, Richard Newman as Rhinox, Doug Parker as Pterosaur, Alec Willows as Tarantulas, and one of my favorite voices, Elizabeth Carroll Savinkoff as the Predacon computer. I always thought that was a really good computer AI, sort of monotone computer AI voice, like that sort of, the ones you kind of come across in dystopian video games and movies, where there's like a disembodied AI voice and it's always a feminine one that's kind of monotone, acknowledged, that kind of shit. What else we got here? So before they scan animal forms, most of the Transformers cannot be fully seen. I think I mentioned this in the beginning. We only catch glimpses of their hands, close-ups of their faces, and vague and shadowy outlines. This is because the animators hadn't designed Cybertronian forms for them. Only after they have acquired their Earth forms do we see them fully. We do, however, get a brief glimpse of Megatron's full form. Yeah, we do. And he's quite puny. So not only were they kind of small already, because there was always the distinction that Maximals and Predacons over the generations had become smaller, and in comparison to their G1 counterparts, they were minuscule. They were pretty tiny. So it stands to reason that their actual Cybertronian forms would be tinier than their current beast forms, especially if you're Megatron. He's got the form of a fucking T-Rex. So I kind of feel like they bulk up or bulk down depending on what the animal mode is, maybe, potentially. This one was an interesting one. The Predacon Scorponok is seen with maximal symbols on his missiles. So growing up, after having already got into season 1 and was already looking online for all kinds of information about the show, this was a bit of trivia that floated around quite a bit, but it was always represented as being an animation mistake. However, the trivia on IMDb says otherwise. It says that the maximal symbols on Scorponok's missiles represent the number of maximal kills he has made before his arrival to Earth. Now, I don't know how to verify that, but if that's the case, holy shit. That's pretty intense. That's fully earning your PG rating right there. This dude's not fucking around. He's already killed some Maximals, and he's etched the symbol into his missiles to denote how many before coming to Earth. This one was also interesting. I might have to go back and see if I can get a screen cap of any of these. So when the Maximal and Predacon ships crash, the rising clouds of smoke briefly take on the shapes of human skulls. Yeah, I mean, why not? The characters' habit of explicitly introducing themselves under new names suggests that prior to their coming to Earth, they had different names. In most cases, this makes sense, since a lot of the names are based on animals, like Cheetor, Rhinox, Tarantulas, etc. However, others such as Megatron or Optimus Primal most likely kept their original names. It was never explained why most of them renamed themselves, but it was necessary from a certain standpoint, namely that the characters had to advertise the toys of the same name. We fucking know that. But it's a great point. It's almost like going undercover, because when you go undercover, you really physically transform yourself, and then you've got to rename yourself. You're rebirthed at that point. So I guess in the case of Transformers, who take on the guise of the dominant things in whatever space they're in, alien space to them, then, a name change is the thing to do. But it doesn't, I don't know if it makes as much sense with G1. G1 already had all their names, you know what I mean? Like Wheeljack, Jazz, Bumblebee. Why is Bumblebee? No, true. He was B, whatever. So even they had that shit, right? They would have had designations and different types of names. Even the recent Transformers 1 film got into that as well. So there's actually a lot of good explanations for why they do this. But in the case specifically of going to other planets, not just being on Cybertron, it depends on where they go and what type of beings they take on as alternate forms. It could be technological like it was in G1, or it could be organic like it is in Beast Wars. And I mentioned in a different video that, you know, it was done in Beast Machines as well, when you had your first plant-based transformer with Botanica, which I wasn't too fucking crash hot about. Conceptually it was okay, but like the rest of it was like, what the fuck, what are you smoking, mate? You're smoking Botanica leaves. Give me some of that fine Botanica leaf. But yeah, it's very interesting. So, you know, Megatron and Optimus makes more sense that they wouldn't, but even those names, like Megatron is supposed to be named after, you know, one of the primes, Megatronus, and Optimus Primal. Like Optimus, sure, but Primal, you wouldn't have a name like Primal on Cybertron. So for Optimus it would be different. I think maybe I don't know, Primal would have been added as his part of his new name. Maybe he was just Optimus. He wouldn't have been another Prime. He would have been Optimus Prime. He maybe would have been just Optimus on something else. Who knows? But it says it was never explained why most of them renamed themselves, but yeah, it was necessary. So thus concludes episode 1. I will also point out again, the animation is so fucking good still. It's crisp like a crisp chip. The character interactions were a big highlight for me. I think that was a big draw when I first got into the series. It was like, that's what pulled me in. Outside of the gorgeous animation, it was just the characters. Like the personality was already on display for each and every character from episode 1. And that's probably what hooked a lot of us in. So join me, won't you, for a review of episode 2, titled Beast Wars Part 2. This has been Beast Mojo. Mojo out.